What's going on YouTube? My name is CymenSniped and welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the basics and a little bit more tips and tricks to building your own unique and strong teams. I'll be covering the general concept on how you can build a balanced team and increase their effectiveness overall surrounding the unit that you actually like. Now it might take a while, so strap on, grab a drink, and let's get into it. Before we get into team building, there are some very important basic information that you need to keep wrapped around your fingers so that you can understand and continue to change your team to be stronger in the future. Now, the first thing you should know about the team are the type of units involved. Putting aside the general role of being a tank, support, or DPS, I want to bring your attention to two very important things. The first thing I like to talk about is the unit's weapon type. Every single Nikke in the game has a unique weapon type that it actually uses. The available weapon types are SMGs that do quick single target close range damage, shotguns that excels in close range, AoE and single target damage, assault rifles that excels in mid-range single target damage, machine guns that boast high hit rate and big ammo clips to clear swarms at mid-range, rocket launchers that does great AoE damage regardless of range, and lastly, the sniper rifles that does most damage to long-distance single targets. Now, looking just a little bit deeper into the unique weapon types, we can actually tell that each of them have a glaring weakness depending on the stage that you're in, and you'll want to keep a healthy balance of them in the team comp that you have. If you only build a team without this in mind, you're going to hit a lot of walls as you try to progress through the game. Now, the second thing I'd like to talk about is basically the Nikke's burst skills. Now, when it comes to burst skills, generally speaking, to put it really simply, they are your Nikke's ultimate skills. Now, after a certain duration of activity in a given battle, the burst gauge will actually charge, and once it's filled, your Nikke's can use their ultimate skills. If you put it on auto, they just trigger automatically. Simple, right? But I think this is something that you might have missed. Burst skills are split into three different types. No, not this. You probably know there's already three different types. Namely, the Roman number 1, 2, and 3, which you can see right next to the character on their profile icons. Although every Nikke have their own unique burst skills, but what I want you to really focus on is the mechanics on how a Nikke is able to trigger its burst skill. Now, burst skills can only be triggered in numerical succession. What I mean by that is that, for example, burst skill 3 can only be activated after burst skill 2 has been triggered, and burst skill 2 can be triggered only if burst skill 1 has been activated. You get what I mean? So always remember this. In a team that you do not have every single type of burst skill, which is burst skill 1, 2, and 3 in it, having a heavily burst free team technically will be quite useless. Now, speaking of triggering, you probably already noticed, but I am a growing content creator trying to squeeze however much time I have on my hands outside my life commitments trying to do this. So if you'd like to support the channel or just hope to see more videos, do hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe consider joining as a member so that I can do more of these. Maybe. Moving on to the actual concept of building a team, here are a few tips and tricks to keep in mind while you pick your 5 Nikkes to put into a team. The first thing we want to talk about is basically the weapon types balancing. Now, like I mentioned earlier in the video, it is essential to try and have a balance of weapon types that help you cover every type of effective range in a fight, because mobs and bosses often move to different distances all the time. There will also be scenarios where monsters will just swarm you in a gigantic bunch of death ball, and your rifle Nikkes are not going to be able to kill them fast enough in order to win the stage, especially the really pesky ones that heals their allies in a tug-of-war mission. Now, to avoid this problem, my personal recommendation is to follow this ratio. You can build a team of 5 with 2 AoE weapons, 2 mid-range weapons, and 1 long-range weapon. As far as close range is concerned, you can probably have 1 shotgun and 1 rocket launcher type Nikkes to fit the build. Now, although that would be ideal, you can always get by with either 2 rocket launchers or 2 shotguns. But the only problem is if you're using 2 shotguns in a fight and your enemies are really far away, even though they're clustered together, your shotguns are not going to do anything to them. So just keep that in mind. Now, to cover the mid-range, nothing beats your assault rifles, and there are plenty a dozen in the game anyway, so you should be fine finding those that actually fits the build. although there is also the machine gun ones, which I mentioned earlier on. Machine guns is basically, imagine Gatling gun, right? It takes a little bit of time to wind up. The effective range is around mid, well, close mid, maybe far, not very far, but close to mid. However, they have a very big magazine size, but the average DPS per ammunition is actually much lower compared to the assault rifle. And finally, for the long range, you want a sniper rifle to be the one who takes that position. However, I find that it is very challenging for me, especially to actually find one that actually is good enough to use, because I feel like sniper units are not that many within the game right now. So even if you actually do not have a good sniper, so I just replaced that with another assault rifle, and it's not the end of the world. She still does the job just fine. It's just that there are certain situations where you will be able to kill your enemies much faster if there was a sniper in the team. As far as burst skills are concerned, there is only one thing I want you to keep in mind. Always and always have all 3 types of burst skill units in your team. Synergy of the skills aside, the most important thing is to be able to trigger them, because like I mentioned before, burst skills activate in numerical succession. Let me give an example of what might happen that will reduce the team's effectiveness by a gigantic landslide if this ever happens. If your team consists of 1 burst 1 Nikke and 1 burst 2 Nikke and 3 other burst 3s, by any chance, if your burst 1 Nikke dies in battle, all your other 4 burst skills are never going to be able to trigger, and that literally cripples your entire team, because the only thing they could do is use their basic attacks. So like I said, long story short, keep in mind, make sure there's burst 1, 2, and 3 inside team. And I highly recommend that you have at least 1 or 2 burst 1s, 1 or 2 burst 2s, and 1 burst 3. Now, the reason I suggest so is because there are certain situations that if you're not paying attention to the game, your single most basic burst skill unit, for example, the very bottom burst 1 skills, they might just die. And if, let's say, the only one you have in the team actually dies, like the example I just gave you, nothing's ever going to trigger. So you increase your chances of being a little bit more safe if, let's say, you have 2 burst 1s, 2 burst 2s, and 1 burst 3. However, that's not the only team comp that you can play. You can definitely go with a single burst 1, single burst 2, and then 3 burst 3s. It's absolutely fine. You just have to be careful to keep them alive. And here's an additional tip, since you watched all the way to the end. If you're new to the game and just barely started, do note that there is a mechanic in the game that lets you boost Nikke's level that you did not spend resources to level up to the lowest level of the top 5 highest ones. That's a handful. That basically means you should only ever invest into 5 individual unique Nikkes when it comes to their base level to maximize your resources. Now, moving on to the TLDR, if you skip all the way to this point of the video just because you just wanted the strategy, that's absolutely fine. Here are a summary of the 2 things you need to do when you consider building a team. Simple, just 2. Number 1, have all 3 types of weapon users in your team. And number 2, make sure to have all 3 types of burst skill users. I know it's super simple, but if you did not watch the first part of this video, just rewind back and have a look and let me tell you why you only need this 2. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. Now, I hope that the video was actually a little bit more helpful to you, because honestly speaking, Nikke is a very fresh game, and a lot of us didn't really have the time and experience to weather it through. And I personally did not get involved in the beta test and also the other test phases. And there are a lot of other content creators out there that actually did that. However, this is just my recommendation and my personal findings on what exactly worked for me when it comes to team building. So if this video really did help you in any sense, hit the like button, leave a comment section below. Let me know if you have any questions, or in fact, you have any other better tips and tricks, leave it in the comment section as well. I will be glad to read them. And definitely, if let's say it benefits the community in general, who knows? Maybe I might just do another video to correct myself. So I guess until the next video, I will see you guys again soon. I usually stream on Wednesdays, currently, maybe over the weekends, but they're always at GMT +8. If you ever see me on YouTube streaming, by all means, pop on by, join me, let's have fun together. I'm loving Nikke. I hope you love Nikke too. Until the next video, see you again soon.